backyard. Stay informed with Pacific Mornings.
Mahalo Lele and welcome back to Pacific Mornings. I'm your host, Saina Fulava Sanili Chadwick. She's a clinical psychologist, a proud Leiti, and now a doctor of clinical psychology. Dr. Penni Wolfgram recently crossed the graduation stage in red, surrounded by her kainga and culture after completing deeply personal research on the well-being of Tongan Leiti in Aotearoa. Her work weaves together Pacific research methods, identity and advocacy, and she joins us now live to share more about her journey on why Pacific Rainbow Plus voices matter more than ever. Malolele, Dr. Wolfgram, welcome to the show.
Malolele, thank you for having me.
Just tell us, can you explain what your research looked at?
Absolutely. The research was a qualitative study, so it highlighted the stories of 12 Leiti living here in Aotearoa, New Zealand, and it focused on all stages and ages in their lifetime. So from their growing up experiences to when they were adults at the time of Talanoa. And it explored different aspects of who they were and the vow that they had with themselves, others, and the environments and contexts that they found themselves in. And as you said, in the very wonderful but slightly embarrassing introduction, there were Tongan tools, practices, and methodologies were privileged in the study.
And on that note, being a proud Leiti yourself, how special was that for you to be able to have these deep talanoa with people from your community, like to be able to have that trust with them? How special was that to be able to do research on this?
Yeah, it still hasn't left me. I did what we call data collection, or I listened to the stories of the Leiti that lent their time, their energy, themselves, and their effort about 5 years ago, 4 to 5 years ago. It still hasn't left me the privilege and the honor that has come with being able to do this. I've sort of been on a journey myself, Nele, in terms of reclaiming what it means to be Leiti. I think for many of us who live here in Aotearoa, New Zealand, we internalize, negative and messages about who we are and what it means to be, for example, Leiti and Whawhawhine. But it's been the most incredible homecoming to not only learn about and caretake the stories of the Leiti that participated, but also myself. As researchers, we're not immune or exempted from the impact that it has for us personally. So that was definitely an experience for me.
I love how you use the word caretake. And when I think about Pacific people and just hearing your voice and hearing your talanoa about, I can just only imagine the amount of mana and respect you have to talanoa these people. And as a Samoan myself growing up, I was familiar with the Whawhawhine, but not so much the Leiti. And I just think about this research you've done. How important is that, not only for the Pacific community, but I guess specifically for the Tongan community, to have this research out there so we can hear the stories in the talanoa from our beautiful and wonderful Leiti community within our Tongan whānau?
You said it just there. I think as Pacific peoples, how we're seen and how we see ourselves is very different, right? So it's very easy to collectivize us as Pacific peoples, and there's wonderful ways and wonderful commonalities that we share across our cultures and nations. But I think of the wonderful work of Sale Ta'awhili, Dr. Patrick Thompson, Felicia Brown-Acton, and the team at Manalangi, who took this incredible approach, to look at the health and well-being of Pacific peoples here in Aotearoa, New Zealand. This type of research lives alongside that, this ethnic-specific research. And many of us Pacific Rainbow Plus researchers want to start to look at the unique nuances and differences that exist. For example, for Leiti Tonga, uh, and as you said, many may not have that understanding of what it means to be both Tongan, and what it means to be both Rainbow Plus or Leiti, and so forth. So I think it's really important that we ensure that there is ethnic specific, pan-Pacific research that exists for us and about our communities.
Yeah, well, what was one of the things that stood out for you during your research in terms of the data that you were collecting?
I think one of the things that really stood out, well, first of all, before I started, one academic had told me, let yourself be surprised, Penny. Allow yourself the space to um, for something different to be to organically come forth in the research. And I always held that in mind because although I have insidership in this research, as a Leiti Tonga, I also cannot claim that my experiences and my life story is the same, if not similar, to many other Leiti, and that showed through in the research. So, but I think one of the things that really came through to answer your question is that our transition or our adventures or our journeys in life was, as a lady, almost overwhelmingly, and almost every lady in the study had highlighted that I cannot succeed or my well-being cannot flourish or madala without the next lady's well-being blooming or flourishing. And that really is critical, Nelly, because many of the research tends to highlight transition journeys, for example, of trans people as individualized, but our journeys are collective because we are Kakai Tonga, we are people of Tonga first and foremost. Our um, aspects of our gender identity, our sexual identity, our sex characteristics are only but one part of ourselves, and we lead first as Tongan people. And so that's incredible. It's an incredible contribution to the research around identity and well-being of trans and gender diverse communities across the globe, because it says firmly and boldly that my journey in this life is incredibly tied and attached to the journey of other lady in this life. So it's incredible to see that emerge through the data collection and analysis.
Yeah, and I'm just thinking of you, your tala northern. I think of like a siapo or a tapa cloth, and I think the strands that make it up, the intricacies. We are not just one strand, but there are many strands to who we are, and it's important that we acknowledge those strands, including tonga leiti, that make us who we are. In your view, what are some of the things that people who are not Leiti, what can we do? What can I do to become more accepting and embracing our rainbow kainga, not just in Tonga, but also in Samoa, across the Pacific? What can I do to be more accepting and embracing of our LGBTIQ plus community?
Yeah, that's an ongoing question, right? And I don't take for granted the privilege that I get to have to be on a show like this, to Talanoa with you, to have this exposure and sort of the amplification of our needs, goals, concerns, and aspirations of Pacific Rainbow Plus people. So what we're doing right now is incredibly important. We Talanoa and we listen to each other openly and honestly. And I think, in terms of media outlets, is to share these stories, to amplify these stories. Because what I'm deeply concerned about is I hear almost daily, in my role at the Ministry for Pacific Peoples as a Pacific Rainbow Plus Peoples lead, and as a clinical psychologist who's chosen to work primarily with Pacific Rainbow Plus peoples, is that there is this ongoing positive stereotype of Pacific Rainbow Plus peoples that we will clean incredibly well. We will curate your spaces wonderfully. And really, that's all we offer. But I hope that this research and I hope that the lived experiences and stories that we continue to tell through art, through research, through science, through education, our communities realize that we are that and more. So, long story long, Nella, is to truly see us through who we are as we are in your families, in your communities, not just on what we can do and what we can give, but inherently who we are as people. Like I said earlier, and I'll continue to espouse this, my gender identity, my Leitiness is incredibly important to me, but it's also a multiple truth or a dual truth that it's also just one part of me. And I'm Tongan first and foremost. And so I implore our communities, our Pacific communities, to hold um, that idea of multiple truths, that I can, for example, hold my value system or believe what I believe about Pacific Rainbow Plus peoples, and I can still respect, support, and honor exactly who you are, um, based not only on your gender or sexual identity, but on the fact that you are my Pacific brother, sister, sibling, and a member of my community. So, holding these multiple truths, seeing people for who they are, amplifying stories, and listening openly and honestly to the life stories and narratives that we have to tell.
Incredibly powerful words, Dr. Penni Wolfgram. And to our listeners, do not take anything away from the amount of the long hours, the years it takes to gather research like this, particularly for Pasifika people. I know with members of my family who have undertaken research in the Pacific field, it's often very bare. So we have to have people who lead from the front, to go out there, to be bold, to be brave, to go out and carry out this research. And I just think it's so wonderful, Dr. Penni Wolfgram, to have someone like you who the LGBTIQ plus community can look at and feel comfortable and safe to share those stories in a safe space, so it can provide our Pasifika communities with the research we need to be able to help us make better informed decisions for our community moving forward. So I thank you for that. I'm extremely proud of you for this research, and I encourage all our other Pasifika researchers out there to go out, be bold, be brave, and do the same thing for our people. Malo au pito, Dr. Penni Wolfgram. Thank you so much for coming on our show this morning.
Alo apito si Oto Fatu.
All right, you're listening to Pacific Mornings on 5:31 p.m.